And good afternoon, Producer Susan. How are you doing today? We're 4 days into spring, 5 days into spring.
Yep. Yep.
It's
4 days.
spring.
Well, let's see. It was 82 degrees on Sunday and then snowed this morning.
It snowed this morning. Well, I took a big gamble. I've got a riding lawnmower, and for the winter, it has a snowblower you can hook to the front of it. And I took the big gamble this Saturday. I took the snowblower off and hooked the mower deck on. So I hope I didn't curse myself by doing that. So, is your lawnmower ready to go?
Lawnmower's ready to go.
All right. All right. You want to hear what we're going to try to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
All right. Well, today is March 24th. St. Patrick's Day was last Tuesday, so we're a week away from St. Patrick's Day. Our quote this week is from economist Thomas Sowell, our old friend. You know, we may have done this one a couple of years ago, but it's a quote about how envy has switched from once, envy was what if you're a Catholic, envy was considered one of the seven deadly sins. Well, it's gone from being a seven deadly sin to a social justice issue. That the people have more than me, and that's not right, and we have to fix that. So we'll tell you what he says about that. In the stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll play a clip of a lesbian professor who tells us that a lot of her girlfriends have penises. So you'll have to explain that one to me. Um, in our runner-up of the stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll play a clip of the governor of New York State pleading with millionaires and billionaires who 2 years ago she said, "We don't need you, get out of here." She's now saying, "We want you to come back." Right? You know, they literally drove these, she and Mondami have literally driven these people out of the state with ridiculously high taxes. And now they're saying, "Hey, yeah, how about come and give us a second? Why don't you come on back? We actually need you." It's just hilarious to see her backpedal. We've got a couple of runners up to the stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you which governor of what U.S. state was asked to leave a restaurant last week and why. We'll tell you about a law being proposed in Illinois that would drastically increase the cost of ammunition for hunters and target shooters, and it would serve absolutely no purpose, no useful purpose. We'll give you an update on a court decision about a 2022 California law that banned gun and ammunition manufacturers from advertising in certain publications. We'll play a clip from John Stossel interviewing a gentleman on why the promise of lower cost power from wind and solar project has never and will never come true. And it's just a fundamental issue I think we've talked about here in the past.
Yeah.
We'll tell you about a couple of bond amount decisions by two different judges in Colorado and how those bond decisions have endangered public safety. We'll play a clip of Bill Maher reacting to the criticism he received for not wearing a protest pin on his lapel when he attended the Golden Globes show ceremony a couple of weeks ago. And our taxpayer relief shot this week is from Chicago, where a 16-year-old thug armed with a gun tries to rob a 36-year-old man who's also had a gun. How do you think that one turned out?
Yeah, probably not so good.
Not so good. All right. So here's our quote from economist Thomas Sowell. He said, "Envy was once considered to be one of the seven deadly sins before it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name of social justice." And we all know what social justice is. It's wealth disparity. Well, these
Mhm.
people have more money than we do, and we need to equalize that. And we've talked before, at least I have, I don't know if you have, but that to me, wealth disparity is an inevitable result or an inevitable indicator of a healthy capitalist economy. Where if you have a capitalist economy where people are rewarded for taking risks, it is inevitable that you're going to have, what Obama used to derisively refer to as um, uh, lottery winners. Well, no, they took enormous risks and they won the lottery. If you want to go to some place where there's no wealth disparity, go to North Korea, go to Somalia, go to Cuba, go to Venezuela, where the only people who have money are literally the ruling class and everybody is equally poor. There is no wealth disparity. You think there's any wealth disparity in North Korea?
Well, like you said, the most of the country, no, it's just the high-ranking officials are
Right, government officials, right. Venezuela, everybody, I mean, they're eating zoo animals in Venezuela. Somalia, dirt poor. Cuba, Cuba, by the way, has been having daily blackouts, the 24-hour blackouts. Um, so again, if I would you rather live in a place that has no wealth inequality or a place that has wealth inequality?
That I want to live someplace like the United States that has inequality, wealth
Right,
inequality.
because that means you've got a healthy capitalist system where anybody can become a millionaire. By the way, do you know how many millionaires were created in the United States last year?
A, a lot. I don't know the number, but a lot.
It was more than one per day. We were making more than one new millionaire per day last year. 365 million new millionaires were created. Actually, it might have been 100 new millionaires per day. I'm going to have to look that one up. Um, but anyway, the United States is literally minting new millionaires. Hang on, that's got me thinking. I'm going to do a little side trick here. Uh, new millionaires created. I should have asked you to do this. Created in the U.S. and 2 million created in the U.S.
According to
It was a thousand. It
ChatGPT,
was a thousand. It was 379,000. The United States created more than 1,000 new millionaires per day, every day. 379,000 millionaires. Isn't that a staggering number?
yeah,
So, wouldn't you rather live in a country where you can, where 1,000 new millionaires are created every day?
yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. And yeah, I knew it didn't sound when I said one per day. It was over 1,000 a day. It was 379,000. That's the type of economy I want to live in where anybody can become a millionaire. All right. All right. So here's the stupidest thing I've heard. Now, this woman, and hey, if you want to be a lesbian, I'm absolutely fine with that. I have no trouble. Great. You're lesbian, you're homosexual guy, you're gay. God bless you. Enjoy your life. I have no problem. But don't be stupid. And here's this. She's a college professor at CSU, Colorado State University. And here she is. She's upset about talking about how trans women are not really women because a trans woman is a biological man who prefers to go through life acting like a woman, dressing like a woman, being called by a woman. So she's upset that people are saying trans women aren't real women. But listen to what she says about her sexual partners. Here we go.
Uh, and the idea that I have to get up here and say that trans women are women and that's what I have to use my time to do is absurd. Shame on you. Shame on all of you. And shame on you for using lesbian politics as a front for your transphobia because this lesbian has had plenty of girlfriends with penises.
This lesbian has had plenty of girlfriends with penises. Now, that struck me as an incredibly stupid thing to say.
Well, I think what she meant to say is that her girlfriends are transgender.
Okay, but if your girlfriend has a penis, is it a girl?
If that's how they identify, yes.
Okay. Well, I was like, you don't agree that was
Jerzee
an
Joe, it's 2026.
okay.
If you want to identify as a woman or a man or as asexual, bisexual, whatever, pansexual,
Okay.
metrosexual,
All right.
it's
We're going to put this to
2026.
a reader vote. Readers, email me at joe@jerseyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. Readers,
I think that person who was speaking in that statement is, if my girlfriend has a penis, that is to say I have a transgender girlfriend,
okay. All
is
right.
my
So,
interpretation of that comment.
well, I know what she meant, but I think that's an incredibly stupid thing that a lot of my girlfriends have penises. I just thought that was a stupid. If listeners, if you agree with Susan that it wasn't a stupid thing to say, then I'll yield to you. Now, let's talk about the runners up to the stupidest thing. Um, okay, here's one of the runners up.
Well,
Oh,
and I think you said it earlier at the beginning of this conversation. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you. If it doesn't affect us, then what does it matter?
all right.
There's too much hate in the world. Go love each other.
All right.
Be happy.
All right. All right. Well, then maybe this runner-up becomes the winner. Here is New York State Governor Hochul backpedaling on all the rich people she told to go ahead, leave. We don't need you. Here we go.
Mhm.
And being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a
Now, by the way, so our tax base has been, so the first thing she's acknowledging is that their policies have driven out people who pay a lot of taxes and their tax revenue base is shrinking. She's now acknowledging that for the
Yeah.
first time ever. But here she goes on.
problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations.
And you're just figuring that out now that you're in competition with other states?
Yeah.
Duh.
Well, she
Hang
she
on.
said in the first comment though, she said something even I found more interesting is about basically saying we need people to support our socialist programs.
Yeah, let's go back. We're going to start this over from the beginning. Here, it's only a minute long. Here we go.
And being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in
Generous social, not just
Yeah.
social, generous social program.
our
And
state.
people of high net worth.
Right.
Right. Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure. But they're going there because of the tax rate. We have to be smart about this. But we can fund what we want to fund with what we already are taking it. And
So what do you think of her like mea culpa and she suddenly realized people can work remotely
Yeah.
and we learned that from COVID.
Yeah.
So well good. By the way, for those who aren't aware, between New York State and New York City, your tax by the way, it was a combined 15% and Mondami wants to bump it by another 2% in New York. He wants to make it a 17% tax rate. So if you're in the top federal tax bracket of 37 and you add another 17 to 37, what's 37 plus 17?
54?
54% of your income would go to pay income taxes, 37% to the federal, and if you live in New York City, another 17% to the city and state of New York. And that doesn't count your property taxes, your sales taxes. That's just income taxes. So, why the hell do you think? I mean, if you're making, oh, let's take a number. Let's just say you're making um, only $1 million a year. And some of these people make five, six, seven, eight, 10 million. But let's say you're only making $1 million a year. What's 17% of a million?
That would be what, 80?
$170,000 a year.
Yeah.
Would you move to Florida or Texas to save $170,000 a year
Yeah, if I was
every
making that
year?
much money.
I'm sorry?
If I was making that much money, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, those
I'm
aren't two states I really want to live in personally, but yeah.
no, but there's others, but
Yeah.
or others where it's only a 4%, maybe it's only 4%. Like you go to Nashville, didn't In-N-Out Burger and I think Starbucks both just moved to Nashville.
Mhm.
So, okay, you move to Nashville, you don't save $170,000 a year, you save $130,000 a year. That's a lot of money. It's real money. So that was now she's saying, yeah, she's basically admitting, yeah, we screwed up. We didn't think people would leave, but they proved us wrong. They're fleeing by the hundreds and our tax base is eroded. and we're feeling the pinch. So that was my runner-up. So maybe it's my winner of the stupidest thing all week. And uh, so here's the other one. Do you know who the governor of Arkansas is?
I do not.
It's of course Mike Huckabee was the former governor. His daughter, who used to be the press secretary for the president,
Mhm.
is now Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's married. Her married name is Sanders. Well, she and her guests were asked. She was out having lunch at a Little Rock restaurant with some of her friends, and of course, because she's the governor, she has a security detail, and they were sitting at a nearby table. Just watching the governor, making sure nobody was going to attempt to injure or kill the governor. Well, the manager came over and said, "Our staff would like you to leave because they feel threatened and uncomfortable by your presence, And they had already been served, so they said, "Well, as soon as we finish our food." And as she was leaving, she got somebody flipped off. Some reports said it was a member of the staff. Somebody said it was another customer eating lunch. But isn't it stupid that the manager comes over to you and said, "Our staff feels threatened and uncomfortable by your
Yeah.
presence"?
I mean,
Um,
unless they were acting like physically doing something or, verbalizing loudly. I mean, if they were just sitting there having a dinner, talking with each other, how is that threatening?
well, here's what and this goes that her office said the request was made due to concerns that her presence was making employees feel threatened and uncomfortable due to, quote, her political views. Yes, she's a conservative. So it wasn't about anything physically like because her security staff was, sitting very unobtrusively at another table, but they were uncomfortable. They were threatened and uncomfortable because of her political views. Yes, she's a conservative governor in a red state. So if we're not going to say that the lesbian professor was the stupidest thing, is that the governor of New York saying, "Yeah, we screwed up and we want you rich people to come back to help pay for our social programs," or the restaurant in Arkansas asking the governor to leave because her presence made the staff feel threatened? If
I
which
think
is
the governor of New York asking people to come back is the stupidest thing. But with the governor in Arkansas at the restaurant, I mean, that's just downright rude and disrespectful.
yeah, and I don't know if as a member of the staff
I
or another
wouldn't say
customer, yeah,
stupid. I would say just rude and
yeah,
disrespectful.
rude and disrespectful, and then flipping the bird as she's leaving, like
Yeah.
an F you, okay. All right. And now this is pretty stupid too. You shoot from time to time, don't you?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, in Illinois last week, a bill has been introduced that would not only add a 5 cent per round excise tax on each round of ammunition sold or imported into the state, they would also require that each and every round of ammunition sold or possessed would have its own unique serial number, either engraved or stamped on the round of ammunition. I don't want to call it a bullet, by the way. We can call them bullets, but technically the bullet, by the way, is a piece of lead. It's actually, when we talk about bullets, it's actually a cartridge, and the bullet is but people call them bullets, but it's a round of ammunition. Now, first of all, what are they trying to accomplish? And I'm going to sneeze. So producer Susan, you talk while I,
Prepare yourselves, audience, because when Jersey Joe sneezes, it's like an earthquake hitting the state of New Jersey. And there have been a rash of minor earthquakes throughout New Jersey recently, and they probably were contributed by him sneezing.
there. Anyway,
And never less than three.
never less than three. All right. Thank you for covering for me there. Anyway, so first of all, like a lot of ammunition, like a little tiny 22, it only costs about a nickel. So basically you're saying, hey, we're going to double that.
Mhm.
I don't know how you buy 20, you can buy ammunition like 500, you buy a box. It's a
Yeah.
loose box. It's 500, it's 500. How do you put in, what do you think it would cost to put a serial number on each and every round of 22 ammunition?
That'd be a lot. I mean, the bottoms of the bolt, the cartridge itself is stamped with, the either the manufacturing stamp, but so are you saying a different serial, like every single bullet would have its own unique serial number?
Every single bullet would have its own unique
Yeah.
serial number.
For that variable data, you're talking a lot of I
Right.
don't yeah.
And let's talk shotgun shells. I shoot a lot of clay birds. I shoot something called sporting clays. It's
And
like
they're plastic.
and they're plastic. Yeah, and by the way, and it's birdshot. It's little tiny birdshot. What
Yeah.
is the point of, who am I going to kill with birdshot?
Well, in theory, you could, but again,
Uh,
that's a plastic casing that those come in. How do you put a serial
right,
number on a and they're ribbed? They're like a little,
right.
they're
Now,
it's a
yeah,
thin
and they're
piece of
ribbed, right?
plastic.
The shotgun shells, now here's the other thing. Now, if they're saying, well, we want to be able to track where the thugs got their bullets, do you know how long it takes to get from Chicago to Gary, Indiana?
Not far.
Under an hour, under an hour.
Yeah, an hour. I was gonna say an
So,
hour.
you're right. So if you're a thug and you already have an illegal gun, and you know if you're going to use the gun, you're going to use it to shoot another thug or commit a robbery. Do you think you would use ammunition, serialized ammunition you bought in Chicago, or you think you'd make the 45-minute drive to Gary and buy your ammunition in
Yeah,
Gary?
I go to Gary, Indiana. But now let me ask you this. I know that you have a lot of friends who press
Reload.
their own.
Yeah, they reload their own ammunition.
So how does that work when you so many? I mean, that's a whole hobby in it. That's a whole nother facet
They
of
would require reloaders to serialize every piece of ammunition they reload because
yeah.
it's each and every sold or possessed, sold, imported, or possessed.
Yes, I
So
mean, I know you have a lot of friends who do this as a side, side hobby.
yeah, just to cut down on cost, it's cheaper to reload your own than to buy new. In fact, when I go shotgun shooting, clay bird shooting, one of my friends picks up all the empty clay, all the empty casings, and he takes them home. He reloads them, and everything he shoots is a reloaded shell. So I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I hope this doesn't pass, but it's talk about a moronic bill that would accomplish. Now, maybe if their goal is to make it so expensive that people won't buy guns, if that's their goal, then maybe they're going to do it. But if they think they're going to cut down on crime by having serial numbers on every round of ammunition sold in the state, they're delusional. Because again, if I'm a thug and I think I'm going to use my gun for an illegal purpose, like shooting someone, murdering someone,
Mhm.
I'm not going to use a bullet that has a serial number on it.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
And I don't even know if they want the serial number on the bullet itself, which is the little piece of lead that leaves the gun, or they want it on the cartridge. And if I'm shooting you with a revolver, well, there's going to be no brass on the ground for you to pick up. So
Mhm.
anyway, the same thing with the bolt action rifle, anyway, just another stupid bill. Now, talk about stupid bills. In 2022, California passed a bill. It was called AB 2571, AB 2571, which prohibited the publishing of gun advertisements in any publication that might be seen by minors. Now, first of all, can you think of any possible constitutional problem with a bill that tries to ban advertisement?
How do you control that? You can't control that.
Well, they can, if you're a magazine and you're published
Well, if
or
your audience, if your primary audience is not, but how do you?
well,
I mean, anybody can pick up any magazine for anything.
no, but they're saying, hey, if you're going to publish or sell a magazine in California, it can't have any gun advertising. Well, that any publication that might be seen by a minor. Well, AB 2571 was first challenged by Junior Sports Magazine, which publishes Junior Shooters Magazine, which focuses on firearm related activities and products. And didn't 6 months ago, every year there's a big collegiate or high school competition, right? They had 6,000 people, 6,000 high school kids with guns
Yeah,
for 3 days.
that's a big shooting. The
Right,
like 4-H groups, and 4-H is specifically for youth.
right. And I think we talk every year about there's between 3 and 6,000 kids with guns for 3 days, guns and ammunition. And guess what? Nobody ever gets shot, right?
Yeah.
It's a national competition. Anyway, they filed suit and they were joined by a couple of California Rifle and Pistol Association. Anyway, in California, California lost, and they lost the first. They appealed, lost again. They appealed again. They lost again. Finally, the California Supreme Court, or maybe even went to federal court, and they all said it's unconstitutional. You're violating the First Amendment. So California has agreed to appealing, stop appealing the case. And there's something called lawfare where these states, what they say, yeah, we know this law may not stand up, but we're going to try to bankrupt the pro-gun groups. Okay. Well, after losing several court decisions, the plaintiffs applied to the court for relief, and the court said, you guys go try to work it out or will make a decision. You know how much California has agreed to pay the plaintiffs' attorneys in legal fees and court costs?
Oh, I can only imagine it was probably ridiculously expensive.
$1.4 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Now that doesn't count California's own costs. Of course, California had attorneys all the way, so it was probably closer to 3 million. And here's my thought: wouldn't it be poetic justice if the sponsors of this bill that was clearly unconstitutional to start with had to pay a portion of that 1.4 million out of their own pocket?
Yeah.
So anyway, so they fought this thing for 4 years because they got sued immediately. They fought it for 4 years. They lost for at least four different cases, as they went up through the appeals court, Supreme Court of California, and the federal court. So they've agreed to pay 1.4 million in fees and court costs. All right. We're going to move on to John Stossel. We've talked in the past that one of the things that when people when and no, I'm not opposed to wind and solar,
Mhm.
and if it can stand on its own 2 feet, but when people say, well, we can generate power for 6 cents a kilowatt, they never include the fact that you can never decommission all the existing power plants because on the day when there's no wind blowing and the sun isn't shining,
Mhm.
you have to fall back on those existing power plants. Well, it's an enormous fixed overhead, and they never include that cost of fixed overhead in there when they say, yeah, we can generate power for 6 cents a kilowatt, but you're spending millions and millions of dollars on keeping these traditional power plants on standby. Well, there's a guy who wrote a book called Alex Epstein, and he wrote a book called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, how fossil fuels have saved lives and improved the quality of life of people all around the world. And it's a very short clip, but John Stossel's interviewing Alex Epstein, and he makes this same case. Here we go.
Solar's getting cheaper all the time. It's already cheaper than fossil fuels.
If you want to look at the cost of anything involving electricity, you have to look at the full system cost of using it. And when we look at solar and wind around the world, for some reason, it always correlates to rising prices as well as declining reliability. Why is this? It's because when you buy solar panels, you're not replacing coal plants, you're not replacing gas plants, because at any given time, the sun can go near zero. So you have to buy the solar panels in addition to the coal plants, in addition to the gas plants, plus pay for a bunch of infrastructure. So the key point is solar panels and wind turbines don't replace the cost of reliable electricity, they add to the cost of reliable electricity.
Because you've always got to have a fossil fuel plant to back them up.
Yeah, or a nuclear plant, but unfortunately the pro-renewable movement is rabidly anti-nuclear.
My full interview with Epstein's available at johnstossel.com.
And in fact, if you look at the state by state, and we did one on Boston or New England a couple of weeks ago, where
Yep.
where they're up at 28 cents a kilowatt hour for their
Yeah, it's
power.
ridiculous. And I
And
hear New Jersey's getting hammered too.
We're getting hammered too. We're up around 18 cents a kilowatt. And if you look, there's almost a direct correlation. The states that have the highest wind and solar also have the highest electric rates, and the states that have the least wind and solar have the lowest electric rates. So
That's interesting.
what more proof do you need that wind and solar does not reduce the cost of electricity because it ignores the fixed cost of keeping again, if you have let's say you have a power plant that has, cost $100 million to build and it costs, $2 million a month just to keep on standby because you can't just, leave them dormant and go, hey, let's go down and turn the plant on. You have to keep that plant up and running and the pumps running. It has to be like on an idle.
Yeah.
But let's say that you only run it for 26 days a year instead of 365 days a year. What do you think the cost per kilowatt is going to be if you only ask that plant to produce 2 or 3% of its total annual output?
It's going to be expensive because
gonna
you
be
have
hugely
huge
expensive.
overhead.
But they never figure that into wind and solar. All right. Running out of time real quick. 2 Colorado judges. There was a guy ever been to a place called Castle Rock, Colorado?
I have.
Well, there was a guy who was arrested on child rape charges. The prosecution asked for a $100,000 bond. The judge set it at $10,000, which of course you can get a $10,000 bond for 10% cash right down.
Mhm,
So
yep.
he puts it $1,000 down. His trial goes on. His trial's not going well. The jury goes into deliberation, and he's free with an ankle monitor, right? Because he's out on bond. He
Mhm.
jumps on a bus. They caught him 20 minutes from the Mexican border. He cut his
Mhm.
ankle monitor off. And so this guy, child rapist, almost got away. In Boulder, Colorado, a drug dealer who seriously injured a police officer, put him in a hospital with concussion, was released on $100 cash bond despite the prosecution asking for 10,000. So again, this is why when you fill out your ballot, look at the judges, research the
Mhm.
judges. All right.
Yeah. I think ankle monitors are about as effective as a protection from abuse order. It's, those are pieces of paper, ankle
Yeah.
monitors.
Yeah.
I mean, after the fact, yeah, but they don't do anything to stop people from doing anything to
By
begin
the
with.
way, he cut it off the day before and the police weren't notified. Now, the court was notified later that day that, hey, this guy cut his ankle monitor off, but the police weren't advised till the next morning. And
Yeah.
that's when a citizen said, I think I saw this guy at a bus stop getting on a bus in New Mexico.
It's no
Anyway,
different than putting a GPS tracker collar on your dog and taking the dog's collar off.
exactly. All right, we're running out of time. Here's Bill Maher, by the way. Talking, he went to the Golden Globes and they wanted him to wear a protest pin. Anyway,
Walking in, some reporter asked me why I wasn't wearing a lapel pin for the first Minneapolis shooting a couple of weeks ago. And I said, well, it was a terrible thing that happened and it shouldn't have happened. And if they didn't act like such thugs, it wouldn't have had to happen. But I don't need to wear a pin about it. Now, please understand, I had no idea this question was coming. And so tonight, I'd like to say that if I had the chance to think about it, my answer would be exactly the same. According to the internet, what I did with my comments at the Globes was laugh, scoff, mock, take a dig at, and refuse to join Golden Globes activism. Golden Globes activism? You mean the activism of fixing a fucking pin to my suit? I'm sorry, it clashed with my kafia. I hope I didn't spoil the perfect record of pins and ribbons solving all the world's problems. I mean, you can't name a problem from guns to AIDS to bullying to breast cancer that still exists after people wore a ribbon for it. Except all of them. You fucking posers. 3 years ago, everybody was all into Ukrainian flags. What happened to that? Another cause tossed into the junk drawer with yesterday's choke collar? Get out of here with your virtue signaling body ornaments. They're just crucifixes for liberals. And
by the way, South Park many years ago did a thing about cause all the bracelets. Remember, everybody had all
Yeah.
the rubber
Mhm.
bracelets. All right, we're running short on time, right?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go right to our Chicago taxpayer relief shot. Here we go.
Chicago tonight, police are investigating after they say a man shot and killed a teenager who was trying to rob him. It happened this afternoon near 117th and Normal. Police say the 16-year-old approached a 27-year-old, pulled out a gun, tried to take his belongings, but the man pulled out a gun of his own, shot the teenager in the chest. Police did bring that man in for questioning, but as of now, no charges have been filed.
Dead right there. You never know
Mhm.
if the guy's gonna have a gun. All right,
Yep.
producer Susan, anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nope.
All right, well, folks, if you can still hear me, thanks for listening. You'll be able to find this in a couple. You'll find these links in a couple days on the Jerzee Joe website at jerseyjoe.com, with Jersey being spelled Jerzee, jerseyjoe.com. If you'd like me to send you a link or like to get on a distribution list, just email me at joe at jerseyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. And with that, producer Susan, anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, I thought it was spring, but yet there's snow on the ground.
I got my grasses coming up, so maybe we'll give you an update next week. You take care. Bye bye.
You too.